Welcome to the Aether Chamber, a podcast from the beginning after the end, or TBATE. Your hosts of this podcast are Mercutio, Toby, Akin, and Pokey, four fans of TBATE. We will cover the various arcs of TBATE in chronological order, discussing the story's details and depth, as well as stating our views and opinions on the story and pointing out differences between the novel and webcomic. The Beginning After the End is an epic fantasy story written by TurtleMe. The novel is on Tapas, which is updated weekly. It is currently available in English. There is also a webcomic adaptation, which can also be found on Tapas. 9 volumes of the novel have been published, and they are available for purchase on the Google Play Store, Amazon, or Audible. There is currently 1 volume of the comic published and available for purchase, with Volume 2 being available on February 21st, 2023, plus Volumes 3 to 6 become available from 2023 to 2024. The Beginning After the End follows the life of late King Gray after his untimely and mysterious death. Reborn as Arthur Lewin, he seeks to correct his past mistakes in the vibrant new continent of Decathlon, a world of magic and fantastical creatures. For those wanting to follow along, we are covering Episode 1, The End of the Tunnel, through Episode 10, A Promise on the webcomic, and Episode 1, The End of the Tunnel, Part 1, through Episode 15, How I Wished, Part 3, on the novel. Episode 1, Early Days. All right. The first podcast, our first recorded session of our little podcast for the beginning after the end. Everyone's read up. What did everyone read up to for? Because I read up to, or I listened to the audiobook. I went up to right around where he encountered the slave traffickers and killed them and saved our little elven friend Tessia. That's where I stopped.
Oh, I read that part like 5 times already.
I will be honest, I kind of forgot to read. Got busy with finals week and all, but I've been talking in novel chat, so I should be refreshed on it.
Yeah, I already still remember everything since I read that part like 3 or 4 times, maybe 5.
Yeah, so to start off, one thing I noticed from actually it's different even from what is published on Tapas and in the comic is that on the audiobook, it seems that there's a prologue. I didn't ever actually realize that. Yeah, so because I was looking at the comic in the first chapter in the novel, there is no prologue, and in the prologue in the audiobook, Travis Baldry, the fantastic voice of our characters, was giving us a little insight. It was as, of course, Arthur, as a little child, reading a book on Decathlon magic and stuff. But he was just reading, skimming through it, flipping through pages. And as Toby can play, he has a little flip sound clip from him.
Flip.
So I just thought that was a little interesting thing because, like, you don't see that in the comic. You don't have like a little prelude to it like some other stories do. He's one thing I've noticed he changed when publishing on Tapas, which he might not have had, totally might not have done when publishing first episode of The Beginning After the End on Tapas. He might not have actually had the prologue, but when he probably fully finished writing book 1, he probably added that in later on. That's probably why it's in the audiobook. I just thought it was a little interesting bit of information. Not many people probably realize that there was a little beginning portion or prologue. And that was my little takeaway from that very beginning. And then we hop into like the first chapter, of course, called The End of the Tunnel. Little 2-part chapter where we get a transitioning from Gray's last dying moments on Earth into his being reborn, quotations about being reborn, just born, because technically he's just born into new world of magic and beasts, into Decathlon as the child of Arthur Lewin to Ray and Alice Reynolds. Or Alice Lewin, sorry.
Doesn't that mean though that it kinda isn't canon anymore?
He was because I mean, you don't really get a lot of stories, you don't get that. The little actually portion of them being reborn. He skims over real quickly and then he says that's
In those stories, it's just like he dies and then boom, he wakes up.
Yeah, yeah. It's usually like you die, wake up as in the body of like a little child. You don't get the actual like concept of
Mm.
birth in many stories. It's kind of like a little funny joke. You just like, wait, was I just born? Was that the light at the end of the tunnel coming through a woman? And he just skips over. He's like, nope, forget that. Not important.
Sorry, I was
Wakes up at the age of 3.
Yeah.
I was interrupted in real life. What I was saying is that isn't that kind of not canon anymore since he scrapped the whole part in the comic, and the comic is like the upgraded beginning part.
No, the comic is a rewritten version, but both novel and comic are
Yeah.
still canon. Both are canon,
Okay.
like separate canons. And the prologue isn't the comic. Like we see him being reborn. It's just shifted around a bit.
It's the beginning of the story from that point. Yeah.
It's the beginning of the end.
Yeah, beginning after the end.
No,
Funny.
the beginning
Good
after the end.
plan words.
The beginning. Oh, so it's the beginning after the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of the end. Good to
But
know.
yeah, it's
Confusing.
interesting because you don't get that many stories. You don't get the very concept of childbirth in most reborn stories, and it's kind of interesting to see. But then, of course, then you gotta. It's really well done out because it gives you the thoughts of someone. Like it actually feels like realistic thoughts of someone going through that process. Like he's still trying to get over the fact that he died, but he's also trying to figure out if this is real or is this a dream. He doesn't know if you can decipher if it's real or not. What's happening? Yeah, so it's the death is very interesting because it's like you don't we don't know how he died, yeah, but and even in the one like kind of like how you said they're both canon, the novel and the comic, but as you can tell, some things have definitely changed a little from in the beginning of the comic, so because he's making up for things he didn't want to put in there, and he wants to put in later into the story, like some of the flashbacks, like one of the flashbacks, they weren't in the comic. I think it
Which flashback?
was.
You mean where he was back in
No, I know
his
it's
old
there.
world?
Yeah, it's. I was gonna say the one where because that gives him. He has the flashback where he barges in on one of the council members as King Gray, and he tells him he's retiring.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like hinting at what might have played a part in his death.
That's chapter 11 of the comic. But yeah,
That wasn't.
Yeah.
That's not what actually happened. That's a
it's
dream
in a
that he
dream
had.
though.
Is it?
He dreamed that he did that. So it's not something that he actually did before he died. It's just a dream he had.
Or like that in the comic, there's a picture of George Washington. Yeah, the picture on the left.
There is.
That's definitely George Washington.
So maybe his old world is set in America
No, I think
or
that's
something.
just for fun because I don't know who the other guy is, but he isn't one of the presidents.
Could you pull up the picture real quick?
I already posted it.
By the way, there is in chapter 2. There's a flashback of him leading armies. Wasn't it like mentioned?
People keep saying it's the Pope.
I think it might be the Pope.
That him leading armies in chapter 2. Wasn't it like mentioned that he took revenge for Headmaster Wilbeck?
That's much later in the story. But yeah.
I think that's volume 2 or 3.
I know it's in the comic. We see
like chapter
her
30
death in the
something.
comic.
In the first few chapters in the novel, but he doesn't mention he mentions leading arms, but doesn't mention him getting revenge in the comic as he early does, as in the novel does.
The comic cuts his genocide.
That's later in the comic. I know it's somewhere there.
He rethought. He's like, I don't need to put that in right now. It's not. It doesn't seem important to the story in the comic.
But so this is just him thinking about it, or
no, it's
might
just him
this
thinking
be a
about it.
flashback to where he led?
It was him talking
in his previous life.
It's more him explaining his past, that he had led armies because he was king.
It led up to the moment where he never felt so proud of himself when he first learned how to crawl as a baby.
Yeah.
Growing up as a kid, you guys never.
Yep.
I don't think anyone remembers much from that, like infantile stage.
Kinda don't know, but I kinda don't even think of much I could say about his baby life.
Interesting spin on it. We lead into going into what is it? Him reading the book on mana manipulation. That's
Yeah.
I mean,
The
yep, it's
encyclopedia
a
of mana
very
manipulation.
well thought out process Total has done with the power system in TBATE.
Yeah.
Like I said, like you don't really get many in-depth explanations on how the system works in a world usually in most stories. This one's very in-depth. The stages of mana core, there's
Yeah, and the fact that the system actually makes sense, and it's not like you suddenly gain the power to do something.
It's not even like they add random stuff in later, like you can randomly summon things or just spirits and all. They don't have stuff like that, where other stories do add that in, just for no reason, pretty much.
plans it. He all bases it off the things and he introduces it properly and how it fits into the system. And I like how it's very realistic because like if you
I like how he sticks to that one system and doesn't deviate from it too far.
it's interesting that like it's because it's like kind of tight. He plays the part where or he talks about how most people don't awaken until their early teens with the mana core or their late teens sometimes depending. But since Arthur Gray has the prior experience of having to actually meditate and form his key core back in his previous life, he has the experience now where he could spend the 2 years manipulating his mana pieces in his body to form his mana core at the age of 3, which
Yeah, he used the theory of how to form a
Yeah.
key center from his previous life and used that to form a mana core.
He did it a little bit before his 3rd birthday, too. He wasn't even 3 yet, just a little bit before he turned 3.
before he turned 3.
But didn't the part where he had immense control over his key play a little part in it as well?
Yeah, he mentioned that how he had a control of his key, like, and the thing with the key is like unlike mana, key was you only had so much key depending on what was inside you.
Yeah.
You couldn't draw it in like you could mana. Yeah, there's no ambient
Which
key.
is the only apparent difference.
And because of there not being any ambient key, there's not really any elemental spells you can do with key or anything. Just spells.
No,
This
but you
isn't the
could,
episode to discuss
you could-
that, but there is reference to actual elements of key.
All right.
But this isn't the place to discuss this.
we got the mana formation. Of course, he blows up the house, which is nuts. It's a little different too. It's the same in the comic, but the only difference is I noticed a little detail is in the novel. It talks about when Reynolds protects Alice and that she points out Arthur's still in the house. Before he leaves, he surrounds her in a little barrier of mana to protect her, just in case anything else comes flying out. But in the comic, they don't show that at all. They kind of just he kind of just leaves her and dashes in the house and starts pulling things off.
What I was going to say is that early on in the comic, they'd have little, like, animated segments. Like, small little segments that would have animations and all. Like him spinning Arthur around and all.
Yeah, the leaves falling or like the faces brightening up when he was being born. It's a little.
Yeah.
Never really happens again after that.
No, I think it takes a little more. It's a little more tough on the editing team to get that in, since they're on a tight schedule now.
I feel like that was probably something more of a like test or beta thing to see if that would work out for comic.
But I mean, you don't really need that. It adds a little extra flair to it, but it's not the most necessary thing. And like, is with them being on a time schedule, publish all this weekly now, and it's being so popular they can't like put it off as much. They kind of probably cut that from the processing. Like, we can't really do
Even
this
just the art itself is pretty taxing on the artist, from what I've heard. He's had to shift his schedule to 10 days.
Was it like a more usual problem in the manga industry that the wrist
Yeah.
starts to hurt because they work so much. Like with the Hunter x Hunter mangaka, it's the back, and with many more, it's like the wrist.
Yeah, because you're sitting, you're drawing, they're drawing just 10 to 12 hours a day trying to get this all done. Then you're having to get if it gets passed through the editor and everything, then if not, you're having to edit stuff and fix everything, and you're not. It's not like he's doing it by himself. He's also having to work with Fuyuki's having to work with Turtle Me on what he want the scenes to look like actually in
The
his head. He
design.
gives him like the manuscript. And then Turtle Me has also the character designs, but he also has like his little drawings how he wants the scene to kind of look out, and then Fuyuki has to like tweak it or play off that and figure out how to put the scene all together.
Yeah.
And you can also, and unlike the novel, you can cram it so much with the novel because it's, of course, words. You can put like very deep descriptions and everything, all the thoughts and everything. But in the comic, you can't really
Yeah.
do that. He's limited to just kind of putting what will fit and make it right there. So it's not just an overload of
Yeah.
words.
But actually, fun thing I actually noticed about difference in comic and novel. In the novel, in chapter 3, when we hear Reynolds talking like before the house explodes, he actually mentions the incident that happened before Ray and Alice stopped being adventurers, where Alice healed a person, which then ended up causing her to not be able to be an adventurer anymore.
That's mentioned that early?
Oh yeah, you mean that?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was mentioned in chapter 2, 3 by Alice, but in chapter 4 we actually hear Lance's name.
Huh. I never realized it was that early.
I'll just send a screenshot. You can see there.
All right.
Because like the second time it was mentioned, wasn't that like before those two went to the war?
Yeah, that's in volume 5 where they volume 6 when they actually have that.
Yeah. He doesn't mention it in the comic. It's
not mentioned in the comic,
Yeah,
so
it's-
they don't know about that.
yeah, it's one of those moments that they kind of just they say, all right, this is a little too early to be revealed on like it was in the novel, so we're gonna wait till they reveal it later on, where it feels more right in the comic.
Mm.
And I think that's like better that they scrapped that part.
Yeah.
I think it would have confused the reader a little.
I have a few complaints with the comic cut and novel stuff, but that's not really till later on. Early on, I feel like the comic did a really good job choosing what needed to be in and not.
It's a little bit fast pace, which makes sense because it's called the early days. It's not supposed to be like really in depth. You kind of just get through the early childhood to where it's just him explain how the world works and everything. So like I understand why people rate it kind of low on the scale, like the first few chapters or the first volume, because it's like you're not getting much substance about, you're not getting much like character depth or build, you're just kind of getting the explanation of how the world works, which is very important to later on in the story because then like everything comes to effect, like the core stages, all the augmenter, conjurer stuff, how everyone works, how things work. But I noticed also in the comic that kind of downplayed Reynolds' strength as an augmenter when he tried lifting some rocks in the garden. Instead, it looks like he's just lifting pebbles. But in the book, he has him saying he got summoned like boulders, kind of like about the size of a man almost.
The size of himself, I think. Let me go check. At the book.
I think they play down his strength a little bit for comedic
Yeah,
relief.
because like he looks, because Arthur's just staring at him and he looks at him. Isn't your dad cool? And Arthur just has this look of downcast, of like just disappointment. Like he thinks he's so proud of himself for so many little pebbles and throwing them like 2 feet when you could throw them further.
You know, that much time of your utmost concentration just to throw that around, stuff like that.
The 3 minutes you're at most concentration just to throw pebbles as far as you could throw them with your bare hand.
Yeah.
Wasn't it mentioned by Turtle Me that he like went down a gear with them, as in making them not as goofy in the comic as they were in the novel?
I think they go a little. They're a little more lighthearted on this side of the novel or on the comic. It's a little more. It was a little more. They gave a little more comedic
Yeah.
boof to it. They didn't. They downplay a lot of the stuff. They give it a little more like yeah. They just wanted to make it a little more silly, more funny. Give it more childish vibe because it is the child day.
Yeah.
You're in his child days. You're not like getting to the nitty gritty until you reach later on a few chapters after on. Then after he, of course, awakens his mana core, and he starts going through training with Reynolds or Ray, little basic
He
training.
gets a wooden sword for his third birthday, right?
Yep, you got him a wooden sword for his third birthday. Started teaching him basic stuff, mana manipulation, how to do all that stuff, and then we get into the portion where he starts realizing he can't really teach Arthur much because Arthur already's kind of understanding it from all reading plus his prior life experience. But of course they don't know that, so they're having their little dinner. The comic does this very well. They're arguing
a very
about
nice battle.
yeah, where they're arguing about sending him to a school or Cyrus to have a teacher, a mentor. And in the novel, it just Arthur's just sitting there playing with his food and acting like there's a war going between the carrots and peas, the carrots of his mother, his queen mother, and the peas of his king father fighting. The comic does it really well. You got a little pea army running around, and you got a little carrot army fighting each other.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that's like their old adventurers armor? Maybe.
Ooh, good question.
That could be the old adventurers armor they wear. I mean, it makes sense because I mean, probably when
That
they're
would be
younger,
cool.
yeah. If Ray was back then, he probably wore more armor compared to what he wears now, because he was probably didn't have as much control over his mana to have as much trust in his mana, so he probably did wear more full bodysuit of armor to protect himself. And now he has what is he at this stage? He's like what a light.
I think at that point he was
light
dark orange.
Light orange, I think.
Doesn't he advance to solid orange later in this stuff? And then
Yeah, he hits solid orange. Yeah, he hits solid orange when Arthur hits like the
Yeah.
light red, I think. Or
Wasn't he light red when Arthur came back?
no, he
No.
when Arthur met back up with them, he had reached around solid orange. Or no, was that after the?
You-
fun fact: Reynolds is the only character to reach light or solid orange twice.
Yeah, but that was retconned because it was a mistake. It's a funny thing to happen.
Yeah, that's just why there's a little bit of confusion about where he hit solid orange. Some people still look back at the stuff that was retconned, not sure which is canon.
I'd probably just go always with the novel.
Yeah, but the problem is the novel had 2 places where he hit solid orange. That's the problem.
But then, of course, as they're having their argument, then Ray turns to Arthur and asks him, This is about you. You should put your input on this." I think it's slightly different in the novel and the comic than the comic. The novel,
The comic makes it more lighthearted, more kind of goofy about how they end up going with him.
yeah, because like in the novel, he just suggests because they're just gonna send him off, but he's just I want to meet the mentor first, meet some teachers. But in the comic, he suggests why can't they come along with him?
Yeah.
So they takes away kind of the mature attitude that Arthur has in the conversation. They kind of just downplay it a little, like how he should have played it. Really.
Yeah.
Suggesting that mommy and daddy come along. And they head out for the 3-week travel to Cyrus. He meets the twin horns. We've got who's it? Helen Shard.
Do you guys think that's like a little foreshadowing that he saw Adam like at first?
No,
No,
Nah.
I
not
don't
really.
think so. No. But yeah, we got Helen, Adam, Jasmine, Durden, Angela. You got your 5 twin horns. So you got 3 conjurers, 3 augmenters and 2 conjurers.
Yep.
Kind of interesting. I think I was gonna say they all have different elements, but they don't, because you got Jasmine and Angela who have
They're both winds.
wind. Yeah.
Right. What about how?
And
Yeah.
Helen.
I think Helen uses wind too.
I'm pretty sure Helen is also
Okay,
wind. Yeah, Durden is earth.
Adam is fire.
Adam doesn't have one, but it's fair. But Art said that his element would be water.
Huh. You think because of the red hair and all, he'd be, fire.
Fire, but that was Ray.
That's not how it works in this
Hmm.
universe.
Guess so.
We have Jasmine Flamesworth with red eyes. And what element does she use?
Wind. Yeah.
Wind.
When
I think it is funny because like he comes out, he has the red hair, he has a fiery attitude, but he has the element of water. Which is supposed to be like a calming element,
The
calming and
opposite.
flowing element, which is a
Go with the flow, yeah.
The element in his personality contrasts pretty majorly.
I think the only person that really fits their element is Kathleen.
Hmm.
She's ice cold.
I think we should talk about like the art and how it developed over time, because I think like if you compare it to now, the art right now where the comic is so much better. Like, you
Yeah.
can't even compare it.
Especially when you look at characters like
Yeah, it's really improved.
yeah. No, it's definitely gotten better over the time. It's just you could see the improvement. It's because it was still in the early stages of getting worked on.
seems like few can found kind of his style for comic nowadays.
Look at this. I just noticed something.
Yeah, see like what he's wearing in the one picture, the kind of armor like that. That's just what I assume he would wear back in his adventuring
Yeah.
days.
But like the greaves he's wearing, they're the same. They look the
Yeah.
same.
It seems he kept them.
Like the same as the one he actually has. So maybe it is his actual armor.
Maybe.
Can you show the picture of?
What?
Can you show the picture of Alice too?
Alice? Sure. Let me get back.
So after he first meets the Twin Horns, he gets into a fight with Adam, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a sparring
Yeah.
match. References nuisance fair law.
Helen sits down and starts asking, like, because Reynolds has been telling him that he's awakened already, and everyone starts perking up and listening, and Adam kind of wants to put him in his place, thinking Arthur's kind of cocky about it,
Yep.
Mm.
but he gets sorely mistaken because Arthur's been kind of technically holding back when he's been training because he doesn't want to reveal too much, but when he tries to do his father-son telepath with with Ray. He tells him Redhead's out for blood, and his dad's just like, "Go get him."
Yeah.
He has to go full throttle, and I think it's funny because when he does one of the moves he developed back as King Gray, he can't do it because he's not used to the small little infantile body, and he curses it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I feel like that's one
It's
thing a
his
lot of
infantile body.
stories don't realize. That's one thing a lot of novels tend to skip over. They don't realize that, the different body and all would cause that much of a difference in fighting capabilities.
Yeah, it's a very good play on how it actually be, because you wouldn't, of course, any of us being the age we are now, going into a young child body like that, we'd be like, I don't have the motor skills and brain function power. Like, I know what to do, tell my muscles to do, but they can't really support that. They're not developed yet to do that. Like, you're gonna end up eating the shit a lot.
Yeah,
Even if we just
you need
change
muscle
back
memory.
to how we looked like 2-3 years ago, we'd probably have a lot of difficulty just because of how different it is within that time span.
Yeah. Imagine going back, like 30 plus years on your body.
Yeah.
Like, they have no idea.
He was 38 as king.
I wouldn't exist. So
I was like, oh, did any of us exist that 30 years earlier? I wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't.
To be honest, I think one thing that I thought was mentioned a little too many times is that he isn't used to his body. I think if it was mentioned like 2 or 3 times, I wouldn't have found it as annoying as it was mentioned this
Yeah,
many times. Like,
it can get it can get a little annoying, but I think it's kind of there just to remind people like, hey, this is a little more realistic. This is how it'd actually be if someone was reincarnated in the body. It'd take a little bit of time to get used to, especially in an infant body. Like you're even if you were already at that age and kind of like trying to already got used to already knowing the body, your body's still developing at that age. You're not going to be able to fully control it properly. But yeah, the duel is a very interesting thing because then he shows off his skills and it impresses everyone, and they all want to learn from this little 3-year-old child how to do this his feint step technique.
especially Jasmine.
That's where the bond builds between him and Jasmine. She wants to learn more from him. It's another little different part in the novel is he teaches her a few more moves and she learns it, of course. But in the comic, it just has her boring into him like it does in the novel, but she never mentions that he teaches her more moves.
Yeah. Jasmine, she kind of tries to go out of her way to learn.
Yeah, it kind of shows her coming out of her shell a
Yeah.
little more, giving her that little more importance, kind of like a sister role to him.
Yeah. She's probably one of the best characters out of the Twin Horns.
Yeah, it's the one you get to know the most, and you know, like you kind of see it get more of her backstory than any other of the Twin Horns.
I think she got like the most early development from every one of them.
Oh yeah, no, she did, because she spent more time with him too while he's in his adventuring days. But we'll get to that in another episode. So continuing off the
Yeah, I think it was like already built up that she's more of a significant character.
Another thing with the Twin Horns is kind of a retcon the comic did, the novel. It states that Helen looks kind of elf-like, but she doesn't have those pointy ears.
Yeah,
but in the comic they give it to her, give her the pointy ears.
the comic she is a
Yeah.
half elf.
So that caused a lot of
Like, it was
confusion
changed.
whether, was she always half elf? Is that comic only? Causes some confusion in the continuity.
I never actually noticed that she is in half elf.
You never noticed that she was a half elf.
We get the battle, and we go up to of course them traveling further, and then it gets into talking about well, actually no, this is earlier on. It talks about the mana beast too. We didn't even talk about this. The mana beasts and their class system, and they have mana cores in them. And of course, for your adventure classes, you have what are the classes? I know you have C, B, A, S, and S class. I think there is there a D class for adventurers?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the lowest class is E.
Yeah, so yeah, you have E, D, C, B, A, and S for adventurers, and then you have
AA,
I
Oh,
think we
AA.
also have
AA.
S plus.
AA, then S, then SS.
okay,
No, that's just
SS,
SS. There's no S plus.
okay, SS class.
Wrong series.
I'm not sure. I just know it was SS or S plus. I chose one 50-50.
And then you got the mana beast, of course, the same levels. But if a mana beast is the same level class as an adventurer, typically the mana beast is stronger than the adventurer because, of course, they're more.
So like a C class Mana Beast probably needs a B class Adventurer to beat it.
Yeah, because it has the same as the natural ability from mana, and it develops its own mana core earlier on, which they call
The body is stronger as well.
And they have the beast cores, which are very valuable in TBATE because they can be used for multiple things. Sometimes they have a beast will, which is what we can get into later as well. Back onto the traveling part. They're traveling to Xerus. He's teaching them to have a little jolly old time, and then we get into the ambush on the mountain.
Wait, is it said Cyrus or Cyrus?
Cyrus
Xerus.
Cyrus Academy. and Cyrus City. Which one came first? Who knows?
Because it gets into as they're traveling. Arthur explains how like a group of elite mages got together to build this city
Yeah.
for the, I think, was it for the academy?
Yeah.
Yeah, but later on, Sten said that Cynthia built academy in the
Yeah.
city.
This retcons into being like
So
the ancient mages did it.
Yeah,
the
because like
ancient mages made the floating city, and then Cynthia made the academy.
yeah, because no one really knew how like it's actually made, because it was probably lost to history. But the rumor was ancient or elite mages got together, but the ancient mages
Yeah.
did, which is something later on have to
Way
get brought into
later
the
on.
story. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's of course it's the floating city. They got to travel, so they're like 3 weeks by carriage, and they're in the mountains. And they get ambushed by a group of bandits who want to take the women.
Can we mention that how extremely ugly that bandit chick is?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's been discussed multiple times.
What as the
The bandit chief.
The bandit chick, like just his lips
oh
alone.
god, yeah, he looks disturbing. It's gotta give him that ugly gruff look.
I feel like that's what they were trying to go for with it.
But you get the ambush. That's a very quick turn of events, because you go from them having to the bandits not they have the drop, but they also don't have like the numbers to overpower 6 adventurers and mages. Well, even though they have what I think 30 men and only 4 of them were mages, they
I
couldn't
think
really
5 were
overpower 'em
mages.
with the,
Yeah.
Or no, 6.
I'm pretty sure it was 4. It was the bandit chief, then 3 others. You had the one guy at the whip. You had the archer, I think, who was the water one, and you had 2 other guys. Because I know each one was fighting one of the twin horns.
Yeah.
But of course, the tides turn real quickly once Reynolds gets his ass slammed into the cart.
Yeah.
Mm.
But another little difference, I think, is also little hesitation between Alice in the comic and in the novel. In the novel, is more hesitation for her to activate her emitter abilities to heal Ray.
Yeah.
But in the comic, she's kind of already hops out of the cart, already starts doing it, kind of. But in the novel, there's way more hesitation. Like Arthur notices this and wonders why she's hesitating.
That probably goes back to both the incident and
More. I think it's more because. I think it's more because if Alice heals, then they'll know she's an emitter, and that means that they'll target her even
place more value on her. Try to go for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this fight shows a little more of Ray's strength as well, since he is it's seen that he overpowers 2 at once, and then someone from behind him came, and I think he would have even like managed to defend against this attack and overpower.
And I've heard others, like, because of how they made him look kind of weak in the comic, throwing rocks around and all. Just Earth isn't really his attribute, right? His attribute's fire.
No.
So a lot of people are thinking that it's a lot harder to manipulate mana or stuff of something that's not your attribute. So that's why I had to work so hard to do it.
So it's actually like showing his strength even more, but it's downplayed.
Yeah. We don't really get to see much of the augmenters use much of their actual element in the fight.
Yeah.
It's because you don't really get much of the elements of augmenters using their stuff later on into the comic.
It's once shown that from Durden how he like shifts.
Well, yeah, you get the
ground.
conjurers showing their stuff, because you kind of have to show that, because it's like that said, they're bending the mana around them to their will. Unlike the augmenters, it even says it's more subtle. It's more shown in their moves, how fire is more explosive, water is more flowing, air is more sharp, earth is a little more rigid. So like augmenters, you don't really get to see it much unless they're kind of like reinforcing their body with like the element, kind of. Some augmenters like earth would give themselves rock gauntlets, or like Reynolds, he would either use the fire attribute to cover his hands a little, give a little more oomph to his punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jasmine probably like put wind on her blades or something, make them sharper.
Yeah, and make him sharper, make him move faster, or reinforce her movement with it, giving her a little more jump distance
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I said, we don't really see that much.
In this scene, I think I'm gonna quickly send you guys a screenshot. I think in the scene he used air. I like actually used it. Or was it to be quicker? Yeah.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
using a spear. It's
Yeah.
good at stabbing.
Yeah, but isn't that a little too quick for a spear?
It's
though?
I mean, it's a comic.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. We can't actually see how fast he's moving.
Yeah.
We do know he stabbed him a few times.
Yeah, but well, with this element too, if he's actually since he's a water element, he should be a little more flowing faster than most with it. It wouldn't be
Its movements are more fluid.
simple fluid, so a lot quicker. He has a lot more speed to him than like say like
Gotcha.
a fire, which like Reynolds would have. He'd have more it'd be one more, just a one shot
More
hit,
power to his punch.
and then of course you got the Jasmine jump up in the air. That's probably due to help using her wind attribute mana to help her pounce that high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think is this glowing or is it just because it went
It's
into the
Just
dark
because
area?
it's cut through the frame, they just gave it a little white background to
Yeah.
make it pop a little more, because she wears a lot of black, darker clothing, so it makes it more visible.
Yeah.
I do think it's cool that they gave the three of them different styles of weapons. You got Adam with the spear, Jasmine with the daggers, and you got Helen with the bow, and then of course Ray with his fists. So you got three different things. And then you have little art with his little wooden sword, or the knife that Jasmine gives him as a present.
It didn't last that long. Think
Oh no, yeah, even though he reinforced with mana, when he tried deflecting the arrow, it shattered, which I think is cool, because like even like it shows even though he could try to deflect it, he kind of took some of the brunt of it, so he kind of went skidding back. But it also shows like even the bandits are surprised, like what the hell, this little baby child was able to stop a full on arrow with the little wooden sword. What the hell's up with this kid? And they never like kind of discovered that he has mana. He has his mana core already.
if they did know that, then that would be that would go for him instantly. They'd forget all about everyone else.
Yeah, but they kind of realized that they didn't realize that he had that, which played into the part where he saves Alice from the water blast, pushing her out of the way. But when he throws the knife, it still catches the bandit off guard, because it has the little trail of mana he's attached to it, hoping it'd work, and he pulls the bandit off the cliff with him.
The first person Art ends up killing in this world, not the last.
And then that's where
First of many.
Yep, that's where we get the little dream of him telling the council member he retires in his past life, where he throws the pin on his desk and walks out, and then he wakes back up to the gruesome sight of the bandit's body next to him.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's the end of the first arc. Then
Wait, we never mentioned.
Never
mentioned what happens. The reveal of Alice. Did we?
Oh no, yeah, the where she's one of the reasons she's hesitating so much is because she doesn't want to get plus her past trauma, but then also the fact that she doesn't want to be targeted because she's pregnant with a child.
Yeah,
which is a very big shock early on, because usually when someone gets reincarnated in stories, you don't usually either they have an older sibling or they don't have any siblings. They're kind of usually an only child. You never get the fact that he's gonna be an older brother. So that's kind of like a big shock, because like usually a lot of stories use like the death of the family, like that's a red flag moment. You think like, oh shit, they're gonna die, but like she has a kid, so there's a high chance she'll live. But you don't also usually get that aspect in a lot of stories where the person reincarnated has a little sibling, which is very interesting to see, because even though he's technically 40-year-old, 30-year-old man with the maturity of a 30-year-old man in his mind, he still acts like a very young older brother when it comes to his sister, which I think is
I think it's
hilarious.
probably because he never really had that experience.
Oh yeah, he just had his friends in the past life, which we will talk about
Yeah.
later on in another episode. But yeah, he never had that experience because he was an orphan in his
Yep.
past life.
No last name.
I feel like the falling off the cliff's a better cliffhanger and leaving it there, getting more into the next stuff. What happens? Because that's
Well, it's not a cliffhanger. I had to.
You have reached the end of episode 1, Early Days, a podcast brought to you by the Aether Chamber, with your hosts Marcrucio, Toby, Akin, and Pokey, 4 fans of TBATE. We would like to give our thanks to Turtle Me, Fuyuki23, Tapas, and Yenpress for working together to bring us TBATE in all of its forms. Links to their socials and websites will be located in the description as well. The novel is on Tapas, which is updated weekly. It is currently available in English. There's also a webcomic adaptation, which can also be found on Tapas. 9 volumes of the novel have been published, available on the Google Play Store, Amazon, or Audible. There is currently 1 volume of the comic published and available for purchase, with Volume 2 being available on February 21st, 2023. Plus Volumes 3 to 6 become available 2023 to 2024. Thank you for listening to our first ever episode. Links to our socials will be in the description to keep you updated with our releases of future episodes and other content. Please like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.